I do not like the National Party. They are a donor-serving anti-worker party. They prioritise the interests of the wealthy. They are short-sighted, they stand for nothing. They have no serious solutions, no original ideas, and no vision for New Zealand. They are weak and spineless, and are unwilling to do even the most basic reforms. I do not like them very much at all. But then I remember that other countries exist. I look around the world. Most democratic countries have a major left-wing party and a major right-wing party. In most countries, the major right-wing party is absolutely insane. The Tories of Britain, the Australian Liberal Party, the Republican Party of America. Deranged right-wing parties. Parties that are obsessed with culture wars. Parties that relentlessly bash marginalised people and demonise minorities. Parties that shamelessly stomp on the less fortunate whenever they have the opportunity. Parties that make the National Party and its politicians look like saints. Make no mistake, I do not like National, and you shouldn't either. I do not like National at all. But National must be the best major right-wing party in the world. Certainly, they have not been consumed by the low, desperate form of politics that characterises most right-wing parties. The shameless bashing of marginalised people. The obsession with meaningless culture wars. National does not spend much time bashing marginalised people. National Party politicians have repeatedly refused to embrace the anti-transgender culture war. Many of them have repeatedly rejected it. They have little interest in culture wars and minority bashing. Of course they are not perfect, and I am not arguing that they are good for marginalised people. But they are a hell of a lot better than any other major right-wing party that I can think of. Unlike most major right-wing parties, the National Party is home to many social liberals. Many of the most high-ranking ministers of the current government are socially liberal. Nicola Willis, Chris Bishop, Erica Stanford. John Key, the party's most successful leader in recent memory, is a great example of this. John Key openly supported and argued in favour of gay marriage. John Key did not go about attacking and demonising marginalised people. John Key refused to work with Winston Peters, who was notorious for such behaviour. The National Party is not a conservative party. They are home to some deranged conservatives, but it is rare for party policy to ever have socially conservative themes, because the party is also home to many social liberals. This prevents the party from acting as a socially conservative political force. Many National Party MPs voted in support of gay marriage. Many of those who did not have since apologised and stated that they regret their decision. The party does occasionally show its conservative side opposing progressive legislation from Labour. But the party almost never puts forward socially conservative legislation of its own. This is in contrast to other major right-wing parties which push socially conservative legislation at any opportunity. Of course we should not grow complacent. National is home to some social conservatives. We should be wary of this, as these people may one day seize control of the party. But for now, it is apparent that the party as a whole has little if any interest in socially conservative legislation. National is a big tent party that is home to many social liberals and social conservatives. Social conservatives often have little if any serious power because they could seriously divide the party. This is one major way in which National is better than most right-wing parties. National also does some other things that would not be expected from a right-wing party. They raise the minimum wage. They do not raise it as much as Labour does, but they do raise it. National is far better than most right-wing parties, and hopefully they will stay that way. They avoid the culture war obsession that has rotten political discourse to the core in so many countries. They do not demonise marginalised people anywhere near as often or aggressively as many major right-wing parties do. They are not strongly socially conservative, far from it. And they raise the minimum wage. It could be said that they do not need to be deranged because under a system where third parties are viable, other parties fill this niche. Namely their two idiotic coalition partners, ACT and New Zealand First. Sometimes I see people compare National to the Republican Party. I think this is very foolish. It is a comparison that downplays the evil of the Republican Party. The Republican Party is anti-democratic, very authoritarian, extremely conservative, willing to shamelessly demonise marginalised people, and dominated by a cult of personality. National does not have any of these characteristics. They are not even comparable. National is far to the left of the Republican Party. The National Party are saints compared to the Republican Party. The National Party is bad, and we should seek to defeat them in 2026. But we should also not forget that things can get a hell of a lot worse. We must always remember that. And we must remember that we are not unique or special. We must be wary. Look how bad things have gotten in America over the last 10 years. 10 years ago, nobody saw this level of political rot coming. Things can change a lot. One day our politics may be like American politics is today. The chaos, the partisan tribalism, the violence, the cruelty, the hate, the authoritarianism. We must never let our politics become like that. Thankfully, we are nowhere near that point, but things can change, and they can change very quickly. And no country is immune to this kind of decay. Such regression can happen in places where nobody expects it. We must be cautious to ensure that New Zealand never goes down that dark road. And we must put safeguards in place. We need a strong constitution, a document that establishes the basic structure of the government, a document that establishes and protects individual rights and freedoms, a supreme and entrenched written constitution. That is what we need. Under the current system, Parliament is supreme. The government possesses a terrifying amount of power. Most people do not realise just how much power they possess. There is nothing stopping them from brutalising and oppressing people other than simple decency and political culture. And decency and political culture is one unreliable safeguard. We need strong safeguards in place to prevent the brutal abuses of power that have happened all over the world. We are not unique or exceptional. If it can happen there, it can happen here. We must restrict the power of the state while we can. Many people take their rights for granted. The government would never want to oppress me or brutalise me. This is what they tell themselves. And that may be true today. But things can change a lot in a small amount of time. No society is exceptional. New Zealand is not unique. New Zealand is not immune to evil. If it can happen there, it can happen here. We must remember that when we see cruel regimes abroad. We are not exceptional. We must put safeguards in place while we can. We need a strong constitution. And we must stop politics from shifting to the right. We must counter right-wing narratives and rhetoric with our own narratives and rhetoric. We must not give far-right forces the opportunity to rise. We must offer strong narratives, powerful rhetoric, good policies, and serious solutions. We need a resurgent, revitalised political left. If people don't think the mainstream can give them solutions, they will look elsewhere. They will look further left or further right. We must ensure that they look further left. Many people are disappointed by the mainstream. We must not let our politics slide to the right. We must rally society around a revitalised political left. A left that offers a strong narrative and great policies. A left that offers a bold vision and serious solutions. That is what we must do.